I've got a goal and I need your help. The goal is to make this podcast reach every corner of the earth. But the only way that I can do that is if you hit that subscribe button. And in exchange, I'll make you a promise. I promise you that the production will get better and we will go far and long to get many more amazing guests and to keep on bringing you exciting and insightful episodes. And listen, I'm proud and appreciative of every single individual that supports the podcast. You're a part of the ERP family. Therefore, hit that subscribe button and let's get on with the video. Yes, my Endless Race runners, welcome back to another episode of the Endless Race podcast. And today I am sitting down with someone that is absolutely killing it in the property game. He has over 10 rent-to-rents, something that I'm very excited about. And today I'm going to squeeze as much information I can get out of him. And I'm going to talk to him about how he's become so successful within the property space. So Ezekiel, welcome to the episode, man.
Thank you, bro. I'm pleasure to be here.
So as I mentioned before the episode started, I actually started out in property back in 2021. I started off, again, stumbled across Samuel Leeds, and I started off deal sourcing.
Yeah.
But I think we both know that deal sourcing isn't as easy as people portray it to be online.
100%, man.
And, you know, when you've got investors that want to invest in Newcastle and all these places there, being from Croydon, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
And then that's when I had a mentor outside of Samuel Leeds that told me about cold sourcing.
Okay.
But even that, there's still a lot of work that needs to be involved because my issue wasn't the investors. I actually had the investors.
Yeah.
It was the properties that was the issue.
Okay, makes sense.
And yeah, it was just so time consuming with my job and stuff. I just decided to stop it.
Yeah.
But you're someone that does deal sourcing, right?
Yeah.
Rent to rent. One thing I like to ask my first guest is if you could describe your journey in 3 words. It can be at any appointed time.
Yeah.
It could be 10 years ago. It could be the last 2 years. What would those 3 words be?
3 words, jeez. 3 words that come to my mind. Faith.
Okay.
Resilience. And stress.
Stress. Faith. What made you say faith?
The reason I said faith because faith is, you know, what's allowed me to get to where I am today and still remain and have sanity. Because, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, anything in business, the stress that can cause you, like, it's crazy. I wake up pretty much near enough most days, and when you're dealing with multiple different guests, complaints after complaints after complaints. So it's obviously my faith, which obviously been able to help me keep me grounded.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also helped me have a different perspective on life and I guess my journey. And I think it's enabled me to, I guess, keep focused. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Because I feel like there are so many distractions. When you think of social media, think of comparisons and everything. And I feel like, yeah, my faith has just helped me stay grounded and allow me to focus on my journey.
Yeah. Do you believe in God?
Yeah, Christian.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that helps as well. And then the second one, we said resilience. I think a lot of people get resilience mixed up. So to you, what is the definition of resilience? Because in sales, as I mentioned, you need to have resilience.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, what's your definition of resilience?
For me, resilience, and I'm going to put in perspective of my life.
Yeah.
Just not taking no for an answer. And whether that's dealing with landlords or dealing with like yourself, your internal battles, because I feel like when you're on this journey in property, like rejections are inevitable. And that's like with any walk in business, rejections are inevitable. But I feel like you need to be resilient enough to not allow those rejections and those obstacles to stop you or hinder you from where you want to get to. So for me, that's why I say resilience is one thing that, you know, is a word that I'll definitely describe my journey.
Would you say it's a must in property?
100%, man. And I think because before I even got to property and being full-time property, obviously I was working in a primary school. I was playing semi-professional football. So for me, my goal was being a professional footballer.
Yeah.
So I had to be resilient in that aspect anyway.
Yeah.
But when you're doing multiple things and obviously you want to have a business as well, that resilience needs to be through the roof because so many different things are going to obviously take your time. But you need to be able to say, you know what, regardless of whatever I'm doing, I'm going to stick at it. I'm going to give this 100%.
Exactly. And I think the reason why I resonate with that so much is because I'm in sales. you know, when you're calling 50 prospects a day and they're all telling you, no, I'm not interested, basically F off.
Yeah.
You just need to say, okay, cool, on to the next one.
Exactly. Man.
Would you say it's a numbers game with property?
100%.
On the topic of resilience.
100%, man. Like when I speak to people on calls on the topic of resilience, I'll say it's 100% a numbers game. Because if you think that you're gonna, let's say, call 20 landlords a day, landlords or agents a day, that's 20 a day. Times it by 5 days. Let's do 5 days a week. That's 100 a week. Times that by a month, 400.
It's a lot.
Times that by, let's just do 10 months, 4,000. 4,000 people you're gonna call, and over 90% of them are gonna say no.
Yep.
But to be honest, you don't need all of them to say yes. Even if only 5 or 10. If 10 of them say yes, and those 10 properties are giving you £500 a month, that's £5,000 you're going to make. But before you get to that 10 yeses, you're going to have to be rejected 3,990 times. And a lot of people are not prepared to be rejected 3,990 times. So for me, that's why I say resilience is everything in this industry.
Out of those 4,000, is that a realistic number, would you say? Like, can people do that?
Yeah, 100%. But, you know, obviously, nobody's going to keep count on every single one. However, for me, I always like to break it down. And to be honest, countless times I've been rejected. But for me, everything is daily task. You know, if you tell yourself you're going to contact 20 different people, then obviously you do that over 5 days. Then without you realizing, that's 100 different people. So, yeah, I think it's a day at a time, but it's 100%. It's definitely possible.
I love that. And the last one was stress.
Bro, stress, man. Stress is... I
can imagine. I see the stories.
Bro. And that's one thing I don't shy away from. You know, I feel like, I guess social media can always like paint business and entrepreneurship as you're just going to make X amount of money passively, whatever. But for me, I don't shy away from the stress, man. Like just yesterday, I had a guest check-in for 2 nights. The property has a hot tub. The hot tub wasn't working. It was deflated. And on top of that, the hot water wasn't working. There was an issue with the boiler. So, and in that property, you can sleep up to 12 guests. So there's 12 people in the property who weren't able to shower, who they booked the property for a hot tub. They couldn't use a hot tub. So, and that's why I say stress, because amongst that, I'm doing other things. I'm in the process of completing my first property. So when I say like business is stress, like it's stress. So yeah, you always have to be prepared for that.
Yeah, I'm ready for that, to be fair. Because
that's good.
Would you say you thrive in stressful situations?
I didn't before, but I feel like now I do. And I feel like before I used to struggle. It used to get to me a lot. When I was working and I had landlords calling me, I had problems with that property, leaks here, boiler issues. Bro, the stress, it was a lot. It was a lot. And there were times I was like, I genuinely can't do this anymore. But right now I'm in a complete different space. And the reason is because mentally, I've accepted that stress is a part of the game. Like nobody is going to be successful without being prepared to go through stress. So the moment you're ready to accept that is the moment you're ready to let your business go to the next level.
You can scale it.
Exactly, bro. Exactly.
Like and I think that's a very big element as to why I actually started this podcast and why it's called The Endless Race, because there's endless stress. Whatever you do, there's never going to be a point where it's not an issue.
Exactly, man.
So yeah, I love that. One thing I like to do for my endless runners, I like to pave the path for them. So one question I ask is, let's go back to 16-year-old Ezekiel. Who was 16-year-old Ezekiel? What was he doing? What was his ambitions? Where was he heading? What was his goals?
Yeah, man, 16-year-old Ezekiel. And you know, when I think back on it, even when you ask me, like I can remember it like it was yesterday. Because my whole life was dedicated to football.
Okay.
Like I wanted to be a professional footballer. Like I left home at 17, so because of football. 19, I left home again because of football. So 16-year-old Ezekiel, my mind was fully focused just being a professional footballer. I didn't see anything else. I didn't care about anything else. I was after school, I would train an extra 3 hours every single day on my football. Obviously, I'll study as well, but football's my life. I'll go to the local park near my house and just focus on football, left foot, right foot. Because for me, that's all I saw. That's all I wanted to be. I wanted to be in the Premier League. So that was my life as a 16-year-old.
And where was you heading? Was you on track to becoming a pro footballer?
See, the way life and the way God works is you may think that you're on a certain path, but
you're not.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? And I think the way my life was headed, I think I was always into business. You know, when I think of like secondary school, I was always into business, like selling sweets and things like that. Always into business. But the way my life was headed, I think it's inevitable that I would have found business at some point, but I wouldn't say I was on route to be professional football. I don't know, because I didn't get there. But I think regardless, like, football was kind of going on an upward direction, because after I was in college, then I had an opportunity to move to Southampton, and then had an opportunity to move to Liverpool for football. Yeah. So it looked like it was an upward direction. So I definitely believed I was 100% going to be a professional footballer.
And then at what point did your mindset like shift?
For me, I feel like when I was 19 and I moved away from home and I was living in Liverpool, I had an opportunity with a professional club, but we weren't getting paid, which meant that I had to use my savings in order to obviously fund myself.
Yep.
And obviously, again, I didn't let my family know because I didn't want them to stress. So for me, at that point, football was my everything, and I saw it as my way out. I saw football as the only way that I would be able to make money for myself and obviously for my family. But I think at that point, when I had £0 in my bank account, 0 pennies, whatever it is, when I had nothing in my bank account and I was still chasing this dream of football, it was at that point where I realized, is this something that is actually going to help me fulfill the dreams that I want to do for my family, for myself, and the charities and things like that? And I think it was like at that point where I'll say I hit the lowest point of my life, because everything that you hoped would happen, didn't happen. So it was at that point where I realized I can't go on like this, and then I ended up moving back down to, back up south to London, and obviously started working part-time and then end up working full-time, because I was like, this football thing is out of my hands. You can try and score as many goals as possible. You can try and do this, try and do that. But ultimately it's down to the manager to pick you, so no matter how hard you work, some things just don't go your way. But with business, you put in the work, you can reap the rewards. Yeah. So I think it was at that point where 1920, where things began to change a lot. And I realized that maybe I might not make it as a professional footballer, but what other options are there? And that's when I began to research on different things. And as we spoke earlier, I tried Amazon FBA, I tried many different things.
You mentioned that, you mentioned about the managers. So would you say football is out of your control at some point?
100%, man. And I feel like the more you're in football, the more you realize that. Like when I was younger, I just thought, you know what? You play football, you score goals, you get assists, you're going to move up. But the more you're in it, the more you realize it's not like that. The older I got, the more I realized it's a business. You know what I'm trying to say? And especially in semi-professional football, which I've been playing for a long time, it's not necessarily about what you know, about who you know. Again, people apply that to business, but with football, it's very prevalent. Because if you're the manager's friend, it doesn't matter how many goals you score, he will play you because he has loyalty to you. And I experienced that on many occasions, so when you're around that, like you think, like, what's the point? And that's why so many people give up the dream of trying to be a professional footballer, because you actually realize that there's only so much you can really do. It's not necessarily about who works the hardest or who's the first to training, because I remember there was times I'll be on training every single week training. A player could go on holiday. Again, he's a more experienced player. He can go on holiday for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. As soon as he comes back, he's back in the team. I remember there was a team, I was a top goal scorer. I think I was 21, semi-professional football. I went on holiday. I only missed training, ready for the match. I was out of the squad, and the manager brought in a more experienced player from another league, and that player took my place for the next 8 weeks. So just like that, despite me scoring all those goals, but when I was young, I was a scapegoat. So you kind of see that if you're the nice guy in football, like, it's so easy to be walked all over. So I feel like, the older I got, the more I saw football in different angles.
Would you say that awareness, if people knew about that awareness, they wouldn't choose to go down the route of becoming a pro football?
Without a doubt.
That's really sad, man.
It is. And I feel like, when I speak to some of my friends now, because I've had friends who they've been at big professional clubs, like clubs that play in the Champions League. And if you were to sit down and speak to them now on how their life has gone, they would say, I probably wouldn't even want my son to play football.
Really?
It's crazy, because football does a lot to you mentally, and again, I'm sure it can allude to other sports, but again, because I've been in football, I can obviously talk about football. You start playing football from the age of 6, it's your focus. You go out with your friends, football. Everybody wants to be a professional footballer. Everybody wants to play in the Premier League. So you're growing up, and without you realizing it subconsciously, like, you've made it your everything. You may not have wanted to make you everything, but subconsciously you've made it everything. And then when you're sacrificing so much time, so much energy into something that you can't control, it's a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous thing because just like that, the moment you get injured, the moment you get released, it's like your whole dreams are just crumbling in front of you. And that's what I realized when I was like, I think 23 was when it really hit me. So yeah, but again, some people realize that at 15, 16. But yeah, regardless, it's a life, man. It's a life of football.
Life. That's really upsetting, to be fair, because, you know, I'm sure you're a very talented footballer, but because of the variables that are out of your control, it prevents you from fulfilling your dream. Yeah,
and to be honest, I don't even say that as to make an excuse because anybody, you hear people say, "Oh, if I would have been in the Premier League if I didn't have a knee injury."
Yeah.
Like, I don't say that. You know, it is what it is. It's life. But regardless, when you're in the industry like football, there are so many things there's so many factors that are out of your control that could prevent somebody from getting to the next level.
So, before we talk about your transition, what is one lesson that you learned playing football for so long, knowing what you know now? What is one lesson that you took moving forward into your life?
For me, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Specifically for those who are in football, again, because I was in football myself. I mean, I still play semi-professional football. But for me, I was at my lowest when football was what I thought all I had. You know, on a Saturday, if I didn't score, I'll be stressed. Nobody speaks to me. But the moment I delved into business was the moment I began to actually enjoy football. Yeah. Because I took that pressure off myself. I realized that, yes, you can make money in football, but there are so many other things and so many other ways where you can make even more money. Again, I'm not talking about the Premier League, but I'm talking about football in general. So, yeah, I'll say don't put your eggs in one basket. Okay,
good one. And then a transition. So you mentioned primary school.
Yeah.
Do you still do that now? Because I know that you said that you don't.
No, so I was working at primary school for 5 years. I've done so many jobs. At one point, I was a cleaner. At one point, I was working in a canteen. I've done so many different jobs. But yeah, primary school, I was working in primary school for 5 years. Okay. And then I went full-time in property about 2 years ago.
Okay, what were you doing in the primary schools?
So at first, I was like a teaching assistant. And then I got offered a full-time role as a learning mentor. So I was mainly they'll have different roles, but I work with kids with like special needs. I work with kids with who are, let's quote unquote, people say the bad kids, behavioral issues who, you know, they will work with me. I'll take kids out for like small groups and like work with them. Kids who may be behind in certain subjects, I'll work with them. So yeah, that was mainly my role in the primary school.
And then property.
And in property, whilst I was working in primary school, I think about 3 years into my journey in primary school, that's when I stumbled across property through a YouTube video. I guess it just opened my eyes to the things that are out there in property.
So, as I mentioned to you before, I was looking at your Instagram. Yeah. And you were on Winners on a Wednesday. For those that don't know, that is one of Samuel Leeds' success students. But Ezekiel actually wasn't on it. So I'm interested to know, you mentioned before that you actually wasn't on it and you were a lone wolf. Yeah, so I wasn't on the academy. However, Samuel Leeds is the person that did open my eyes to property. So for me, that's why I'll always give like credit, because if it wasn't for him doing an interview, Patricia Bright, I would never have seen or known about the different ways you can get into property without owning it, you know. But for me, I went to the £1 crash course, and during lockdown, he put all his courses online. So that did open my eyes. But the biggest thing that did help me get started was networking and surrounding myself with people who were already in the industry. For me, the first-hand experience of being around people who are in the industry is what actually helped me get started. Yeah, Samuel is what he's created now. I know it's changed over the years, but what he's created now is the community is crazy. Yeah. Like he has academy dinners, inner circles. And that's the number one thing that everyone says. The reason they joined, is because of the networking, and I'm learning that myself, going to these dinners and speaking to people. So we'll talk about your strategies. The main ones is rent to rent. Yes. So for the people, explain to them what a rent to rent is.
Cool. So rent to rent is essentially you taking a property from a landlord or an agent. Yeah. You take it as a company lets, and then legally you're allowed to sublet the property. So that could be through platforms on like Airbnb, or you can use it for strategies like HMO, which is, as most people know, like student accommodations, for example. Yeah. So yeah, that's essentially rent to rent in a nutshell.
And how many rents do you have at the moment?
So I went from 0 to 17. I gave 2 back.
Wicked.
They were HMOs, which are no longer profitable. So I'm currently on 15. And for me, I don't really care to really go past like 20. For me, rent to rent, 15 to 20, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Because rent to rent for me is a cash flow vehicle.
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me now is owning the assets. So I could have scaled way past 20, but for me, I just want the cash flow. And now I'm in a stage where I'm acquiring properties and obviously helping people get into the strategy as well.
Because that's one thing Samuel teaches is the rent to rents gives you the cash flow.
Exactly.
The deal sourcing gives you the pot for you in order for you to invest in your own stuff. And I think that's quite a good strategy.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, how much do they make your rent to rents?
They vary. So I might have a studio that on average could bring 400, 500. I do have properties that probably profit me at least £2,000 every single month.
Wow.
So they definitely vary. But yeah, I do have properties that are doing very, very well consistently.
And where's your patch?
So all around London and Kent. So different areas in London and Kent. Yeah, that's where I'm based.
Yeah, because at the moment, me and my partner is Essex and London.
Yeah,
I know they're quite big boroughs.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the moment, we're just trying to find our patch.
Yeah.
Where would you say, what advice would you give starting to try find your patch?
You know what? Rent to rent can work in so many locations. Like people ask me like, where is the best place in London? But honestly, I wouldn't say there's a particular location because there are certain factors that make a location good. When you're looking in areas like London, for example, whenever guests ask questions or guests inquire about properties, quite often they want to know how quick can they get into central London? Where is the nearest station? What's around it? So if you bear that in mind when you look into a property, you will see that, especially in London, there are so many different gold mine locations. You know, at the end of the day, close to the city centre, good transport links, parking obviously could be a bonus, the amenities that around the area. These are different things that will make your property in high demand from January to December.
So as part of that, what's like your due diligence? Like what's your kind of like your step-by-step process in finding or identifying a good rent to rent?
Yeah, so the first thing I do, if you were to give me a postcode right now, the first thing I'll do is put that postcode on Google Maps.
Yeah.
I'll go on Google Maps and I'll see what's around the area. How many stations are around the area? What shops are around the area? What does the area look like on Street View? That's the very first thing. Within probably 3 minutes of you giving me a postcode on Google Maps, I'll be able to tell if it's going to be a good property. And then obviously once I do that, I will go on Airbnb and I'll type in that exact postcode. There's certain filters that I'll do, but then essentially what I'll do is I'll look for other properties nearby, seeing how much they go for on a nightly rate. Again, you can only take that with a pinch of salt basically, because some people might have direct bookings. So again, Airbnb doesn't give the full picture. But regardless, I'll still look to see what's around that property, what's around the area, and see how much I could potentially make. But I think because I've been in the industry for quite a while, I would probably know somebody who's operating that area. So again, it's always good to ask people, how's your property doing? So yeah, those are the 3 things that I'll definitely do.
Okay. And when you've found a good property, do you speak to estate agents or is it only landlords? Because obviously I know Samuel teaches, or we've experienced that estate agents don't really understand what a rent to rent is.
I wouldn't say that. I would say it's a mixture of everything. I'll say different strategies can work.
Yeah.
You know, for some people, letters have worked for them. But for me, when it comes to estate agents, I found that the smaller estate agents tend to be the easiest to work with.
Okay.
The big estate agents, for example, like Foxtons, it's almost like they have so much to lose by taking a risk with a company that they don't bother. But the smaller estate agents, it's easier to build a good relationship with the main person in charge. So for me, smaller estate agents have helped me massively. Direct to landlord approaches have also helped as well. But also word of mouth and actually growing a social media platform. Like funny enough, before I actually came here, I had somebody reach out to me with a 3-bed house in Greenwich saying that she's open to letting out on a long-term let, and that's for social media. Wow. So yeah, so many different strategies can work.
Yeah. Would you say rent to rent is the most lucrative strategy in terms of, I don't want to say the quickest because I don't like to use that word.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah.
I wouldn't say rent to rent is the most lucrative strategy. And the reason I don't say that is because there are so many people who've done rent to rent but end up losing money consistently. I remember I took on a property and I was losing over £1,000 every month. So if that was my only property, my perspective would have been rent to rent is definitely not the most lucrative.
Yeah.
But obviously, because I've done various strategies, I can say that rent to rent is a great strategy when it comes to building cash flow. However, the best way to actually maximize your cash flow with rent to rent is diversifying your rent to rent. And what do I mean by that? I mean, service accommodation, HMO, whether it's supported living, social housing. For me, that is a lucrative strategy, not just rent to rent as itself. Diversifying your rent to rent is a lucrative strategy.
I've heard a lot about assisted living at the moment, and how you can actually explain what's assisted living.
So for me, some of my rent to rents, some I work with social housing companies, some I work with supported living companies. So they're two different. But what essentially is that you're taking a property and then you're giving it to basically like a third party company, what I call rent to rent squared, and they essentially guarantee your rent. But again, they are able to offer, well, some companies can offer a very high premium based on demand. So for example, I have one property where I'm making £2,000 profit. And again, yeah, exactly. And I don't do anything on that property. Literally, I've given to that company. I don't do anything.
Wow.
Exactly. So again, the reason why is because that's it's a care, like there's vulnerable kids in the property. So obviously the government obviously able to pay a lot of money because there's a high need for that property. So again, when you mix that with the social housing, with the SA, with the HMO, you can understand how it can be very, very lucrative. But again, with that strategy, some people have reached out to me saying, you know, how can they get more properties for that? But it's not just the easy thing where you just find a property, go and Google, write support living. It's not that. It's more of a relationship thing. That's what I found personally.
Yeah. So would you say if anyone wanted to get into that, build relationships with the councils and stuff, or?
For me, I haven't had to build a relationship with councils. I've built a relationship with people. And I always say property is not about property. Property is about people. Yeah. And I found that the reason why I've been able to make these connections with social housing companies and support living companies is because I've built good relationships with people. The people who are in charge, I've built good relationships with them. Like, for example, my service accommodations, insurance companies, insurance clients, they book me on a regular basis. And the reason is because I've built a good relationship with the right people in charge.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. You mentioned one of your properties is losing you £1,000 a month. Was that out of your control?
So yeah, it was losing me £1,000 a month. So that property is actually with a supporting living company now. That was out of my control. I tried everything. You know, normally I don't usually do like 2 night stays, but that property, my minimum sites, I was even accepting like 1 night stays.
Oh really?
Like I was eager, man. But
is that one of your early ones?
Yeah, it was one of my early ones. But you know what? It's, again, sometimes you have to learn the hard way. But yeah, with that property, I didn't do the correct due diligence. So for me, that's why I said I had a factor to play. But at the same time, you know, it's a lesson that I guess I'm glad I went through, because it was that point that opened my eyes up to the other ways to diversify your rent-to-rent portfolio.
What would you say is the biggest red flag in doing a rent-to-rent deal?
The biggest red flag
that would say, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not taking this on.
So now, well, when it comes to service accommodation, it's all about aesthetics. So if it doesn't look a certain way, like on the outside, for me, I don't bother. Yeah. It can be in a great area, but if it doesn't look right, I'm always thinking of my end users. If it's looking like the guests could end up being like scared to walk in the place at night, I don't bother. Because for me, I want to take on properties where, you know, it can give like a nice feel to guests. When they book, they look forward to it, not they're scared to go home at night. So for me, aesthetics are everything. That's one. And another red flag is high-end apartments. A lot of people going for high-end apartments, but me personally, the reason why I don't run to them is because a lot of them, the leases actually don't allow it. Okay. Yeah. So many, especially so many newbies in rent to rent, they will go for a property that's in a high-end apartment thinking that, you know, it looks nice and everything's perfect. But the truth is the lease actually doesn't allow it, which means that if the concierge or if the main leaseholder, freeholder actually finds out, your business will get shut down straight away. It's
illegal, right?
Exactly, it's illegal. So for me, that's a red flag for me.
And how would you find out that information?
So to be honest, with most high-end apartments, especially ones with concierge security, the lease actually doesn't allow it. Yeah. So there's not much point. You know, I know so many people that they've had to give back their properties. You know, so I just don't bother. Me personally, I do prefer houses. If it is flats, it would be like ex council flats. Yeah. It wouldn't be the high-end modern apartments.
And do you take on properties, rent to rents, where you have to renovate? a little bit, or
When I first started, I took on, because again, I was eager to scale aggressively. So I took on a few projects that I had to renovate from the start. But again, I would only do that if I knew it was going to do very well. For example, I spent over 10K in one of my properties, but that property, I'm listing about £200 a night. And that property is within probably like 4 months, I've probably made all my money back, plus made some profit. So again, it all depends on the area.
Depends, yeah. Because that's something that I'm thinking about. Like, do I really want to be taking on properties where I've got to do a refurbishment and stuff? But if it needs to be required, and like you said, if it's gonna get me 85% occupancy, 90% occupancy, why would you do that?
Exactly.
You're gonna make your money back within
100%. And I think the most important thing is the numbers, man. The numbers make sense. Once the numbers make sense, then you've calculated the risk.
Yeah.
So for me, just due diligence, bro, is key.
Okay. I'm just worried the time.
It's time for 31 minutes.
31. Yeah, because we only have 2 till 3.
Cool.
So I'll move on to the other questions. I guess a main question is biggest failure. Up until Ezekiel's life, what is the biggest failure? Doesn't even have to be property related. It could be something to do with football, anything.
The biggest failure. See, you know what? Yeah, I look at failure differently. I don't see failure as failure. I see them as lessons, man.
Yeah.
So for me, I'll say the biggest lesson I learned, I think it probably would tie in, obviously, that's because of the top of my head, when I took on a bad property in a bad area, I think that opened my eyes to see that I don't know everything and there's still so much to learn. No matter how confident you are, there's still room to growth. So for me, I feel like that was one of the biggest lessons that I took from it. Another big lesson I learned is that you need the right people around you. And when I say the right people around you, you need people who are further ahead of you.
Yes.
Because you need people around you who you can learn from. If you're the only person in your circle or in the room who I guess is the furthest, then there's a cap on your growth. But for me, the reason why I got to where I am now is because I surrounded myself with people who were already further than me. Yeah. So I was able to learn so much faster than I would if I was doing it by myself. So yeah, who you surround yourself with is key.
Is that something, because I know a lot of people struggle with trying to network with people. Is that something that you struggled with, like putting yourself out there?
I think it was. And you know what? Before I just touch onto that, when you're talking about the biggest lessons, one of the actually biggest lessons is social media is everything.
Yes.
And you know what? That's the biggest thing, one of the biggest things I've learned probably in my life. And I feel like every single day I'm seeing it more than often. So when you just said right now about putting myself out there, I didn't want to put myself out there. Yeah. Before I even announced, I put my face on like social media, like I had like 5 properties behind me. And to be honest, I didn't even want to put my face out there. But one of my good friends, Dammy, he said to me, bro, just put yourself out there, grow your personal brand. He kept getting on to me, grow your personal brand, So that's what changed my life. Me putting myself out on social media has opened up so many doors that I would never been able to open up myself.
Could imagine. Because like you said, it's about people. Property is about people, right?
100%.
Investors will invest depending on what strategy, but sometimes they invest in the people.
Exactly.
So I think that's something that I struggle with, because I wouldn't say I'm an introvert, but I wouldn't say I'm an extrovert. Yeah. But then when it comes to networking, I really need to put my best foot forward. Yeah. And it's a struggle for me. So it's important that you say that. Opposite of failure, success. Yeah. What is Ezekiel's best success? Something that he can say, I am super proud of this moment, this achievement, this even lesson.
I think for me, one of the biggest success when I look at my life, I feel like being able to leave my full-time job. Because getting to a position where you can leave your full-time job from something that was quote unquote a side hustle, for me, that feeling is unreal. Yeah. Because I wake up every single day and I work for myself. Yeah. I was once in a position where I didn't want to wake up and go to work. Like sometimes I genuinely forget that like people are in a job, and it sounds crazy because I could be on my phone like texting someone and I just remember, oh, they're at work. Because right now I'm in a position where I guess I live life on my own terms. Again, there's still so much to achieve, but still I live life on my own terms. I could book a holiday right now and work from holiday. But when I was working in primary school, I didn't have that opportunity. Yeah. So getting to a position where you can actually live your life on your own terms, honestly, I can't explain the feeling.
That's that, and again, that's something that I'm trying to achieve. The reason why I got into property is because I know how lucrative it is with the rent-to-rent, with the buy, refurbish, refinance. One thing I like to do, I guess something that I'm doing recently is accountability. Because not a lot of people take inventory of themselves. What I mean by inventory, what are they doing well? What do they need to work on?
Mm-hmm.
So what's one thing that you, as a person, and will help you to become the best version of yourself? That can be anything from meeting your friends more often, having systems in place for your businesses. What is something that Ezekiel needs to focus on that will take him further into his journey?
I think definitely systems. Systems are important. Over the last month, I've actually invested heavily into systems. Like, for example, like my YouTube, my Instagram, my TikTok, I have someone behind that. My DMs, I have someone in my DMs, you know, calls, I have someone taking calls. But systems, 100%. Because, and I feel like I learned this the hard way. For so long, even with multiple properties and obviously trying to start buying properties, I was trying to do everything by myself.
Yeah.
And there's only so much you can do by yourself because you're one person with 24 hours. But the moment I began to put people in place, the productivity, the opportunities has increased massively. So for me, I believe that if I want to get to the next level, I need the right people in place. I need the right systems in place. And I think that will open up so many doors for me.
Does that when you say systems, does that also trickle down into like your habits, like what you do outside of business?
Yeah. I think it all has. I think it's all interlinked. You know, for me personally, like sleeping early. I would love to sleep early and wake up early.
Oh, I'd love that.
But for me, it just can't happen.
Yeah, it can't.
Like when it's 12 o'clock and most people are sleeping, for me, I'm like, I could probably do more things property related. You know, so for me, I'd ideally like to sleep earlier, switch off earlier, and wake up earlier.
You mentioned switch off. Do you struggle switching off in terms of work?
100%. And I think, I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for every business owner, but I feel like you can never fully switch off when you're a business owner. You know, if you're on holiday, you might be, I don't know, watching something on TV, and then in the back of your mind, you're thinking, there's this person that I need to respond to.
Yeah.
And that's what I find myself doing. I could be on holiday, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I just realized I need to respond to that email, or I just realized there's an opportunity, because there's always more ways to make money. And again, like nobody wants to obviously say money rules them, but again, like money creates freedom.
Yes.
So when you're working for yourself, even if you're on holiday, the opportunity to make more money, you kind of wouldn't turn it down. And so that's why for me, I feel like it's very hard to completely switch off.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because when I used to do it at FBA, it's like, I always want to find new products.
Exactly.
So the opposite, again, what is one thing that you're doing really well?
One thing I'm doing really well, I feel like I'm very honest. I feel like integrity is everything.
Yeah.
I will never, for example, like my mentorship, I don't sell people dreams. I tell people exactly how it is, you know, for me. And I feel like in social media, it's not as common anymore. I feel like so many people, they're willing to sell dreams because it benefits them more. For me, I'm not like that.
Yeah.
So for me, I feel like this is a trait that I just want to maintain. Like I don't ever want no amount of success or anything to change that, because for me, I guess it's what's made me who I am. And everybody I work with, everybody that works with me, they can see that. Yeah. So for me, one thing I do well is that I'm very honest, and integrity is everything.
Honesty is the best policy, right?
Exactly.
So you mentioned your mentoring. I don't know if you want to quickly talk about your mentoring.
Yeah. So that's another thing that I'll say it's a big success.
Yeah.
Because as well as me being able to leave my full-time job and start my rent-to-rent journey, being able to help other people do the same thing, honestly, that feeling is unreal.
I could imagine.
You know, so there are multiple people that I've helped. Pretty much nearly every single person, I'll say bar one, has taken on the deal from working with me. So imagine all those people that I've worked with, they've never had a rent-to-rent business. They've never started a rent-to-rent business. You know, they're very, very much newbies. So yeah, my mentorship has been able to help like numerous people start their rent-to-rent business and actually scale their rent-to-rent business. So
and what does that mentoring include? Is it live training?
Yeah, so my mentorship, everything is one-to-one.
Wicked.
You know, and for me, again, I've had so many different mentors in my life, but the mentor that I've grown under the most is one that gave me that one-to-one attention. Yeah. So that's what I do with my mentorship. Everything I do is one-to-one, hand-holding them from start to finish. Every single person that I work with, they have a roadmap of how I can get them from where they are to where they want to be, you know, and everything is tailor-made to the individual, and I guess the results speak for itself.
I think it's so much better when you do one-to-one.
100%.
Because, you know, I've done FBA courses in the past where it's all pre-recorded.
Exactly.
they haven't changed it in like 10 years. It's like I'm paying all this money, but I'm not even able to speak to the person that creates the content. So I think it's a good thing when it's one-to-one.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure.
So I'm just putting the time. So one thing I like to do, and I'm actually bringing this back,
Cool.
is Endless Race. I don't know if you've seen the artwork, but it's a game. It's an arcade game. It's an arcade game. So one thing I like to do is I like to do a general knowledge quiz with my guests, just for a bit of fun, test them out, see how smart they are, but also, you know, low key embarrass my guests if they're not able to. Because I've had some guests say some stinkers.
Okay, let's go, man.
So you'll have 2 minutes.
Okay.
And I've got a bunch of questions. Hopefully you don't get to the end. And then, it's just a bit of fun. And then after that, I've got some other questions to ask you.
Cool.
So, you good at general knowledge?
I like to say so.
You seem like you're a witty person. Okay. Are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Who plays the actor Tony Stark in the Marvel series?
I'm so bad at stuff
it's
like
fine. If you
Tony
don't,
Stark.
You can say pass if you don't know.
Man, I just know him as Iron Man. Yes, my mind's gone blank.
Robert Downey Jr.
That's it, yeah.
In which year did World War I begin?
Oh my God, World War One, probably like 1946.
1946? 1914.
1914?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
What is the capital of Japan?
Tokyo.
Nice. What is the square root of 169?
169 square root.
Yeah. So number times number. What is?
Yeah. No, I know square root. I'll just say Jesus. Man, I don't know. 16. I don't know.
It's 13. Which country won the FIFA World Cup in 2018?
Italy.
It's France. Oh, which country flag features a white cross on a red background?
White cross on a red background. Is it Georgia?
Switzerland.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, Ezekiel. Which country is the most populous in the world?
Populous?
Yeah.
United States.
China. What is the chemical symbol for hydrogen?
Hydrogen, H2O.
H2O.
Wait,
hydrogen.
wait, hydrogen. O2?
H.
Ezekiel. Bro, you can tell I wasn't good at science.
It's all right. What is the largest ocean in the world?
The Atlantic.
Pacific. Oh my gosh. What has keys but can't open locks?
What has keys but can't open locks? Keys. Piano.
Yes, nice one. Which player has won the most Ballon d'Ors?
Messi.
Yes. What is the largest land animal?
Land animal. Human or monkey?
Elephant.
Oh, elephant. Jeez. That was a trick question, man.
What country has the most Olympic gold medals?
USA.
Yes. And then the last one is, what is the chemical symbol for sodium?
Sodium. Man. P something.
P. Na.
Na.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
I'll give you one off the. What does R2R stand for?
Rent to rent.
That was for Ezekiel.
Yeah,
was for.
I never listened science, man. It wasn't my favorite subject.
Nah, it's cool.
I just like making money.
Yeah, that's it. That's all that matters, to be fair. So yeah, towards the end, I like to ask my guests just a certain amount of questions, just to see everyone's perspective. So the first one is, if you could have any superpower, what would it be, and how would you use that superpower to impact the world?
Ooh.
Try not to keep it generic, like super strength or teleportation.
Yeah.
Be imaginative.
Okay, cool. For me, I would say the brain, like super. What would you call it?
Super intelligence?
Yeah, super intelligence. Mm-hmm. Because for me, you have super intelligence. You know exactly how to find things to obviously help with like cancer and all these type of things. You have different strategies in order to be able to benefit the biggest problems in the world. So for me, I'll probably say that would be
problem solver. You have to
exactly.
solve a lot of problems.
Solve loads of problems.
Yeah, that's a good one. What advice would you give to someone starting out?
The biggest advice I'll give to anybody starting out their property journey: 1, make sure you educate yourself. Before you want to take on a property, make sure you educate yourself, because again, yes, you can make a lot of money, but you can also lose a lot of money. And the other thing I'll say, make sure you have finances behind you. Yep. Again, if you don't have finances behind you, make sure you're around people who have finances. Because again, there's like a myth saying you don't need any property or any money, but the truth is you need money. You know, you need money because worst comes to worst, you know, your boiler breaks, or not boiler, there's a roof leak in a part of the property and the landlord's not able to cover it and it needs to be done ASAP. You need money.
Yeah. Need a lot of money for a roof anyway.
Exactly.
It's about $5,000, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But not even roof, sorry. I'm talking about ceiling because, again, I've had so many issues where leaks have happened in the ceiling. So, yeah, again, you need money because if the landlord's not able to cover the issue straight away and your ceiling has a leak, you know, you're going to need to sort it out ASAP.
I just thought of a question that on the topic of you know, starting out a property with no money. For rent to rent in particular, how much money would you say someone needs?
I would generally say you need about £5,000 to £8,000 in order to get started in rent to rent. Again, I'm based in London, so London's probably slightly more expensive, but the further up north you go, it's probably going to be more cheaper, closer to £5,000.
And is that 5,000, 8,000 going towards refurb, or is that starting out being able to pay the landlord?
So that's everything. So generally, I mean, let's talk about London. 1 month rent, 1 month deposit. Let's say it's £2,000. So £2,000 rent, £2,000 deposit. That's £4,000. You might need to pay £3,000 on refurb and furnishing a property. So let's say that's £7,000. So again, that's £7,000 to take on that deal.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Who's had a significant impact on your life and why?
Oh, who's had a significant impact in my life?
Can be anyone. Dead or alive.
Again, because we're talking about property, for me, one of the persons who's had
doesn't have to be property related.
Okay,
It can be in life.
I'll take it outside of property then. For me, I would say my brother.
Okay.
I'll say my big brother. It's just obviously me and my brother.
Yeah.
But for me, when I just think of my life and me being able to get to where I am today and who's helped me a lot, I'll say definitely my brother. The support along the way, the belief that he's had in me, the guidance he's had in me because it prevent me from going down a wrong path. Yeah. My brother's always been there. So for me, I'll say my brother's probably had one of the biggest impacts in my life.
And is he in property? Did you do property together?
No, he's not in property, man. He's in UX. He's a UX designer.
Oh,
but again,
amazing.
he does want to get into property as well.
Yeah. Good stuff. What is one quote that you live by? So
one quote I live by.
When Ezekiel was feeling down, 50 agents, 50 landlords have said no.
For me, my favorite quote is a scripture from the Bible, and it's Proverbs 3, verse 5 to 6.
Yeah.
And it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. And the reason why that scripture stands out to me is because we live in a world where we want to lean on our own understanding. We think we have all the answers, but the truth is we don't. There's only so much we really know. So for me, that passage gives me comfort because even when I don't know, the Lord knows. Yeah. So for me, that scripture is something that's been able to help me get through a lot of difficult times when I didn't know the answer. So yeah, for me, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding.
I love that so much because that's one thing I'm trying to build on is my relationship with the Lord. Because at the end of the day, he has all the answers.
Exactly.
I could be going, like you said, going down property, but that's not actually my path.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a good one. So another thing is I'll get you to do this as well.
Sure.
But I stole this from Stephen Bartlett. So I get all my guests to write one question.
Okay.
For me to answer my new guest. And the question is, what would help you achieve your 5-year goal in less time?
The right association. Okay. I think if I'm surrounded by the right people, I think I'll definitely get my 5-year goals in a very quick amount of time. Because again, especially those who've gone already ahead of me, I've already seen the impact in my life by surrounding myself with people who've already gone ahead of me. So yeah, I think I need to just continue to surround myself with the right people. You know, those mentors who can guide me and help me get in the right rooms. I think that'll be game changing. And you're on that path? Are you doing that stuff? Yeah, I think I definitely am. Definitely on that path.
Good stuff. And then my last question to you is the endless race. What does the endless race mean to you? How do you interpret the word endless race?
When you say the endless race, for me, I just think of life. I feel like life is a constant race. Yeah. You know, and I feel like it's not ending because I feel like when you listen to those people like Andrew Tate, you do see that like you're in a system. There's only so much you can really do. Everyone's always chasing the next thing, never satisfied. So for me, I feel like everyone is almost stuck in an endless race because we always want more. You know, and I feel like the only way to get out of an endless race is to be content. And contentment is one of the hardest things because you look at your neighbor and you want exactly what they have. You want a bigger car. You want more money. You know, so I feel like when you have that mindset, you're always going to be in an endless race. But the way to get around that is by truly being content with what you have.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think you described that perfectly, because that's one of the reasons why I created this podcast, is because we're always chasing the next shiny thing. We're always not even necessarily chasing, but you're always going to experience a failure. As we
Exactly.
mentioned at the start of the podcast, there's always going to be something that's going to go wrong, but then there's also something that's always going to go right, and that never ends.
Yeah.
So Ezekiel, it's been a pleasure having you off.
Thank you, bro.
Tell the people where they can find you, your mentoring, your property stuff, everything.
Yeah, so my Instagram and my YouTube is _EZY property. If you are interested in mentorship and you actually want to kickstart your rent-to-rent journey, then drop me a DM on my Instagram, and yeah, we'll get talking and I'll see how I can help.
Damn right. I'll leave all of his descriptions. I'll leave all of his details in the descriptions. But guys, that has been Mario for the Endless Race podcast, and I will see you on the next episode. Peace.